The stories that I've told up to this point tend to be almost entirely focused around two specific characters, which are Cassandra and Nathan, the two Malkavians. And that isn't that surprising because the players who play Cassandra and Nathan, they are my most proactive players, the ones who engage the most intensely with the game and the story. If you've ever played any tabletop RPGs at all, then you will be aware of the fact that some players are extremely passive. They don't really act in the game, they only react. Especially in a game like mine where, 90% of the game is talking to NPCs. If you're the kind of player who will never initiate a conversation with an NPC, you're just not going to be as engaged in what's going on as some other players are going to be. But there are other players in the game, and some of them are doing a lot of stuff, actually. One of them being Enzo. Enzo is probably the character I've talked the least about in the previous videos because he is the most isolated from the rest of the group. Enzo plays a Ventru. From a political perspective and a business perspective, the Ventru really are the movers and shakers more often than not of the vampire world because they tend to be the ones who have all the political and economic power. But since the other players are not really playing characters like that, it tends to be that Enzo is really on his own, doing his own stuff. And this is largely Enzo's story, and it's also kind of the story of how the group first arrived in LA and how the first chapter of the game got them going. So the way that this game began was the players are all in New Jersey, and the first episode, the first session of the game starts, in medias res. The players are in a car driving out of New Jersey. They're all the human family members. A couple of them are ghouls, but the human family members of this old Malkavian named Antonio Bompensero. The game proper begins during the first session when they arrive in Los Angeles, and they go there because the only person that they know in the supernatural world is Dr. Carter, who is a child of their ancestor Antonio. So they go there hoping that he can help them and get them established, which he does. Now, I didn't want the game to start off with just, here you guys are, you're in the city, this is the prince, this is the sheriff, these are all the people who are already in charge. I wanted them to have some sense of kind of having shaped the city that they live in. The solution that I came up with was to send them into a city where the prince was gone. The prince had just been killed. The power structure of the whole city was in flux. I set up 4 potential princes, but they would just sit there in gridlock forever until the players arrive, and the players would be the ones who would go about all the other smaller individuals and factions, gather them up together, and essentially you'd have like a bunch of little allies with loyalty missions that you could potentially do for each of those. And if you could accumulate enough of those, pull enough allies to your cause, you would be able to swing the balance of power and go and pick whichever prince you wanted to join forces with, bring your allies to their camp, they win, and now there's a prince, and it's not you, because it would be ridiculous for the players to be in that position right off the bat. They're noobs. But you have taken a part in deciding who that prince is. So the 4 potential princes were Stone Tree, who is the primogen of the Nosferatu, the vampire who has been in the city the longest. He has a very large brood of Nosferatu who are very loyal to him. Ivers, who is the Tremere regent. He is very powerful, very deep in with the Camarilla. And then you have Cowboy Bob. Cowboy Bob is an anarch. He's not part of the Camarilla. So if he takes over, he's not going to be a prince. He's going to be a baron, which is what the anarchs call their princes. And then you had the 4th one, the Chimera. The main purpose of the Chimera and that faction is to be a sire to Enzo, because he wants to be a Ventru. So I bring in this old Ventru who is going to kind of become his mentor, which is Lacroix. Lacroix is the seneschal of the Chimera. The way that I had envisioned the game probably going, Ivers would end up being the sire of one of the player characters, Archie. Cowboy Bob, the anarch, would end up being the sire of one of the other player characters, Anna. Neither of those things happened. Lacroix would be the sire of Enzo. What I thought was most likely, which is that it would come down to the players getting to pick between Ivers, who was like hardcore, Camarilla, status quo by the book, and then Cowboy Bob. The players would get to decide whether they wanted an Anarch city or a Camarilla city, and that these elder Ventrue who came in as the Chimera would get kind of wiped out in the crossfire. There was a whole plotline I had it set up where the Chimera would get caught bringing Sabat in to attack LA, and then Enzo would be left as like the kind of the lone Ventrue in the city of LA, and someone who is prestigious because he has a very ancient and respected sire, but also kind of a pariah among the Ventrue because his sire consorted with the Sabat and was put down. That was the plan that I had. That didn't happen. That was just what I was going for. And as soon as they arrive in LA, the two different Malkavians, Nathan and Cassandra, they both in different areas start having visions of the same individual. They start having visions of this woman in a long trench coat with like a Stetson hat who sort of appears like at the end of passageways and in doorways on stairs. It shows up in dreams or weird flashes that they have when they're walking around the city. Now this woman is Golgotha. And Golgotha is a very important part of this entire setup. And this goes back to one of the very earliest lessons I ever learned in how to run tabletop games, which is the concept of modular content, and an incredibly important idea that is not immediately obvious to a lot of people. It wasn't immediately obvious to me when I started. But once you figure it out, it really allows you to be a lot better at running tabletop games, which is that no matter what you think, no matter what you prepare for, nothing is actually true until you tell the players that it has happened. When the players see a haunted mansion on the hill, you might know what's in that mansion. But it's not really there yet until the players go see it. If they choose not to go to that haunted mansion and they go somewhere else, you can just take whatever was in that mansion and just move it to wherever they went so that you recycle the content you used somewhere else. And this works with everything in tabletop games. And Golgotha is one of the most extreme examples of this I've ever used in one of my games, where Golgotha was set up from the very beginning of this game. They were seeing visions of her. They were hearing messages about her through the Malkavian network. They were being told over and over again through different areas, this woman is coming. Whoever this is, she's coming. And they would see her doing the Undertaker throat cut thing. They would see fire everywhere, see her burning things down. So you're mostly burning down this movie theater. But they didn't know who she was or where she was coming from or when she was arriving or who she worked for or what. And neither did I. Golgotha was a plot point. She is something that is going to arrive and end the game. Or end the chapter of the game. But when she arrives and how she ends the chapter of the game is unknown until the players make it happen. Whenever the players show up with all their allies and say, we've decided we're going to throw our support behind this prince, that's when Golgotha arrives. And wouldn't you know, Golgotha has been the ally of that prince since the beginning. As soon as Golgotha arrives, she is going to murder everyone else in the city who is threatening whatever prince the players have picked. And I won't know which prince that is until they pick them. So the first thing that kind of happens in the game is the players meet people. They meet Dr. Carter, but then they also meet the Torrio family. They meet Little Eddie, and they meet his nephew Tommy. They also meet through them Jillian, and they meet her son Jimmy. Now, the Torrios are gangsters. They're humans. They've shown up recently in LA from Chicago, and they're running a lot of the booze business in the city. And they are immediately set up as a potential ally, but also a potential rival, depending on how the players want to run with it. They also then meet the Wyatt family. And the Wyatts are like this crazy vampire cult from Texarkana, who are based on the Wyatt family from the WWE. As soon as they meet the Wyatt family and they see their weird blood rituals that they're doing, the Wyatts right away are like, hey, you want to kill somebody for us? We want you to kill July Wilkes. And so they're like, yeah, okay, sure, we'll kill this guy. We have no idea who. Now, July Wilkes is one of the potential allies. The Wyatts are among the potential allies. And they're involved with other people who are potential allies. There were several ways they might have run into July Wilkes or the Wyatts, or they might never have encountered them. It just happens to work out this way. They also meet Nick, who is involved in trying to solve this series of ritual murders, which I talked about in the Matilda video. Through Nick, they meet Jeanette. Again, Nick and Jeanette are allies on this chart, people that the players can eventually, potentially, pull to their side. And the first allies they start to grab are off of Dr. Carter, and the first one is Nucky. Like a lot of the characters in here, Nucky is a character from the show Boardwalk Empire. Really good show, which I stole a lot of characters and ideas from. Nucky is demented by Dr. Carter. He comes up and gives him a handshake when he introduces him to Enzo, and he does the little Malkavian whisper in his ear of like, this is someone you can trust. And so, based on that, Nucky decides, even though he's never met Enzo, that he's going to give him an important role in his organization, and the first thing he needs him to do is go to San Francisco to meet Arnold Rothstein. Nucky is a politician. He controls the police, but he's also a gangster, and he's involved in prohibition, selling booze. The problem that Nucky has at this point is that he doesn't have enough alcohol. The reason he doesn't have enough alcohol is because his main supplier, Chalky White, is running into this kind of gang war with what he thinks are just out-of-town hoods, but who are actually the ghouls and vampires of Cowboy Bob and his Anarch crew, who have come in and also started setting up a liquor running business. So Nucky's plan is to send Enzo to San Francisco to talk to Arnold Rothstein to get a new supply of alcohol, because he knows that Arnold has a lot of booze. During this time, things are going very much the way I expected. They meet Matilda, they solve the murders. The whole thing with Matilda doesn't go the way I expected it to go, but they do end up getting Matilda as an ally. They get Nick as an ally by solving those murders. They get the Wyatt family as allies by killing July Wilkes. Archibald also meets Dominetta. He starts doing various missions for Dominetta, stealing things for her, helping her acquire items and artifacts that she needs, and starts integrating his way into the pyramid of the Tremere. Then you also have Cactus Jack. Cactus Jack was always intended to embrace Cassandra. It happened faster in a different way than I'd expected, but that was my plan. That happens, and that gets them Cactus Jack as an ally. It also gets them Jeanette. Jeanette feels bad about what happened with Cactus Jack, so now Jeanette comes over as an ally as well. This is probably like 3, maybe 4 sessions in. A lot has happened, and it's been going pretty well. They start gathering information about Cowboy Bob. Now, the way that I had assumed this would go down is that they would find out about Cowboy Bob, and much like they had found out about other vampires, they would be like, well, obviously we shouldn't fuck with him. He seems way too dangerous. Just like how clearly we shouldn't go fuck with Dr. Carter. Clearly we shouldn't fuck with the Tremere. Clearly we shouldn't fuck with Cowboy Bob. But then they might go talk with him. But they don't do that. They talk with Chalky White, and they talk with Nick, and they talk with Mickey Doyle, and they gather information from these different people about Cowboy Bob. And I tried to make it clear to them, like, this is a guy you don't want to mess with. He's bad news. What I had thought would happen was that they would go and they would discuss with Cowboy Bob what was going on. They would try and come to some sort of arrangement with him and Chalky to help Nucky. They would eventually start working for him, and that would lead to Anna eventually becoming part of his crew, which is because she wanted to be a Brujah, and Cowboy Bob was a Brujah, and that was my plan. But instead, they decided, or specifically, Enzo decided, let's go take out Cowboy Bob, the head of the Tremere. He wants to kill the guy. So, you know what let's do? Let's locate him, which they did, because I told him where he was, because I expected them to go talk to Cowboy Bob. But they don't. They go to the Chantry. They all go in there and they're like, hey, we need to meet with Ivers. Guess what? We know where Cowboy Bob is. You're looking for him, right? And Ivers is like, yeah, I am looking for him. And they're like, well, we know where he is. You want to go fuck him up? And so that's exactly what they do. The player characters, the Tremere, there's like 12 Tremere, and the Wyatt family all load up into trucks, drive to Cowboy Bob's bar in the middle of the night, and they burst in to start fighting this guy. And it was a funny scene because he's just hanging out in his bar, just sitting there with his buddies, just kind of, chillaxing. And all of a sudden, like, the doors just burst the fuck open, and the player characters just like rock in. Anna like comes in with a fucking shotgun. She's not even a vampire. She's just a lady with a shotgun, just like bursts in, and then like the windows explode and the Wyatt family charges in and these Malkavians are rushing in, and Anna's like, Cowboy Bob! And Cowboy Bob is like, who the fuck are these guys? And they're like, you're dead, motherfucker! And they just start rushing him. And then like the kitchen blows up and the Chimera are coming through the kitchen with their fucking magic, throwing fireballs and shit. And Cowboy Bob is like, who the fuck are these guys? And all hell breaks loose. You've got Bruja running around like Super Saiyan crushing tables. You've got Cowboy Bob's guys and the Wyatt family beating the ever-loving fuck out of each other. Anna is blasting people with a shotgun. The Malkavians are running around stabbing people. And then you got the Tremere coming in there throwing spells and like wizard shit. And it turns into an absolute bloodbath. Cowboy Bob had like, 15 different like anarchs with him. They all die. All of them are killed in this. There were like 7, I think, members of the Wyatt family, and almost all of them die too. I think only the leader gets away alive. The player characters, a couple of them almost got killed. And then the Tremere, like I said, there are like 12 or so Tremere. Almost all of them get wiped out too. Now most of these guys are either like ghouls or low-level vampires who are not that hard to kill, and they're just getting toasted one after one. Because most of the Bruja, they're not that tough. Most of the Tremere are not that tough. And you've got like, you've got Cowboy Bob obviously, and Ivers who are throwing a lot of pain. But you've also got like Matilda there, and Matilda is just staking the shit out of people. So it's kind of ugly. And then it comes down mano a mano, Ivers versus Cowboy Bob. This wasn't really what I had anticipated, but I have their stats. Either one of these guys can pretty much one-shot the other one. Ivers has like some fire thing that he can just like melt people with, and Cowboy Bob has the potence thing, Fist of Cain, I think it's called. It's the Superman punch, right? You gotta cock your arm first, so it hurts more. Then you punch him. It really just comes down to, win initiative, you win it all. It's like, Commoner versus House Cat. And Cowboy Bob is faster, and he just punches a hole straight through Ivers and completely fucking kills him.
I mean, crap, man. Look at that.
The players panic and run. Now that all the other Tremere are dead, Dominetta panics and runs. Everybody runs away. And I was just like, wow. Now what do I do? Ivers is the guy who I had most likely thought was going to end up running the city. He's dead. Cowboy Bob was another guy who I thought was a likely candidate to be running the city. And I mean, he's still alive, but there's no fucking way the players are going to be making nice with him anymore. Like, that's off the table. And I think pretty much as soon as they drove away from that bar, left that bar fucking on fire, Enzo was like, we should just go to San Francisco immediately. Get the fuck out of here. Because Cowboy Bob was going to be after us. And he was. He was like making ghouls and mass embracing guys and chasing after him. He like found their hotel, went to their hotel, and like had ghouls staking out their rooms. Came very close to ambushing Enzo and just fucking killing him. Now, when the players first get to San Francisco, they immediately go find the prince. Because Enzo knows that you should present yourself to the prince in a new city if you don't want trouble. They attend a little poetry reading that the Toreador put on. Nathan reads some rather dark and disturbing poetry, which the Toreador don't approve of, which Nathan then does not approve of. And then they head to their meeting with Rothstein. When they meet Rothstein, they find that he is not alone. First, they encounter Tommy, but that also then leads to them encountering little Eddie and his brother, Johnny Torrio, and also their contact, John Cross. So the primary reason that they are here is to try and get this new deal with Rothstein that will help Nucky in his rivalry with Little Eddie. But now they find out that Little Eddie and his brother already are working with Rothstein. So it's kind of a lost cause as soon as they arrive. Enzo tries to negotiate, and he manages to arrange kind of a later meeting with Nucky, but can't really make any headway. And they also meet John Cross. Now, John Cross is Lacroix, the Ventru. Immediately, Enzo is suspicious of Lacroix and tries to figure out, like, is this guy a he's like doing perception checks to try and figure out if this guy is like undead. The meeting ends and Enzo goes to leave, and as he's kind of like walking through the restaurant, taking off, Nathan is like talking to Tommy off in the corner. The Torrio brothers approach him separately from Rossi, and they start talking with him in Italian. Now, the Torrios they're in the mafia, and they're from Chicago. They've been sort of driven out by the expansion of Al Capone. And Enzo's backstory is that he is old school Sicilian Cosa Nostra, right? He's like a man of respect, a soldier, made on the other side. You know, takes this stuff seriously.
That's St. Peter, my family's saint. Now, as that card burns, so may your soul burn in hell if you betray your friends and the family.
So these two mafia guys, they come up to him, and Johnny's like, you know, what are you doing, you know, working with this Irishman and stuff? You should be working with us. You should be working with your family. What do you say you take care of Nucky for us since you're so close to him, and we split Los Angeles. You can have East LA, and Eddie can take West LA. And you guys can run it together. So they shake on it and bring in the Torrios as a new ally of theirs. And then they leave, and Enzo and Nathan are immediately snatched up by a bunch of vampires and dragged off to see the prince. Now they get pulled in to talk to the prince, and the prince is pissed. He's immediately asking them, like, what were you doing with Lacroix? Do you work with Lacroix? What is he planning? And they're like, who is Lacroix? They have no idea who this is. The prince gets pissed and tries to dominate Enzo, but Enzo has really, really high willpower, so he rolls and the prince rolls, and Enzo resists. And the prince then gets like fucking pissed and just belts him in the mouth, and so like Enzo falls down. Nathan is standing there, really not sure what to do. He's surrounded by other vampires who are way older than him and way stronger than him, and he's pretty sure they're about to be killed. And right about that time, all of the stained glass windows in this cathedral, this Catholic cathedral where they are holding Elysia, are destroyed. Now, all the player characters are in San Francisco except one, and that's Cassandra. And the reason that Cassandra isn't in San Francisco is that Cassandra had a vision, a Malkavian vision, in which she heard this voice telling her that the Chimera had sent the spider to San Francisco. She has no idea what that means, but when she hears that the players are going to San Francisco, she's like, no, there's a spider there, we shouldn't go. And Enzo's just like, fucking Malkavians. Just goes anyway. But Cassandra was right. There is a spider in San Francisco, and they're about to meet them as the ceiling of this cathedral collapses in on them. And this Zemitzi elder falls down from the roof, grabs the Prince of San Francisco, vicissitudes his spine out of his body, and just twists it down through his ass and melds it to the floor.
Fatality.
And then through the windows come a massive army of Schlatka. If you don't know what Schlatka are, they're ghouls, but they are a specific type of ghoul created by the Zemitzi. The Schlatka are bigger, stronger, and meaner than regular ghouls, and they're often made of several different regular ghouls, kind of like fused together like Play-Doh. In general, you just don't really want to screw around with them, and there are a bunch of them here, and a bunch of Zemits who come in after them, and war breaks out as the Zameets just raid this Elysium. Enzo and Nathan are just like, we gotta get out of here. They're like dodging around, like attacking these Schlatka. Some stuff sets on fire, and they're like panicking because of the fire. And they manage to get through this battle, get away. And then they hear from across the street this very calm voice. Mr. Bompensero, are you in need of a ride? And Lacroix is just there. He's just standing there at his car with his dog. They have a long conversation in the limo with Lacroix. But he denies being a vampire or a ghoul, just brushes that off as if he doesn't know what they're talking about. And he drives them to a boxing match to meet Arnold Rothstein. And Rothstein at this match tells Enzo, the Torrio brothers are screwing me over. They got me under their thumb. If you can kill them for me, like, I'll give you all the booze you need. I'll let you come in here and work with me in San Francisco. Like, I can open up all these doors for you. And Enzo's like, okay, yeah, I can do that. No problem. And as soon as they get back to their hotel, I think, calls the Torrio brothers and tells them, Arnold Rothstein just offered to pay me to kill you guys.
You stay within the family.
And so the Torrio brothers are like, okay, well, then he has to go. Player characters are like, we can never come back to San Francisco.
Go back to Arizona. We can't ever go back to Arizona!
Now, over the next stretch of the game, a number of other things happen with them continuing to sort of gather their allies together. There's a whole storyline with Dominetta where she's trying to rebuild the Chimera Chantry, and Archibald has to help her acquire this building. This is also where they encounter the Bradoviches. There's a whole storyline here with Archibald where he's working with Dominetta and this other ghoul of hers, Exley. Eventually, this came down to this showdown moment where they like get into the room and they're like, and now we're going to strap the victim to this chair and inject them with this poison and do this ritual and turn them into a gargoyle slave. And then Exley like pulls a gun on Archibald and's like, get in the chair, Archie. And surprising the fuck out of me, Archibald's like, okay. And just goes to sit down in the chair. And I was like, wow, okay. I guess I had to kill him now. I just did not expect that. I assumed he would fight. Luckily, the other players are like, no, what are you doing? Are you nuts? So he gets in a fight with Exley. He manages to beat him, and then they turn Exley into a gargoyle slave. And then Archibald gets embraced into the Tremere. They also go through a whole storyline with Jeanette. When Lacroix comes to LA finally, he meets with Jeanette because they're old friends. They come up with this plan for Cassandra to help them get into the movie business. They want to blackmail these two movie executives. So one of the movie executives, they sneak into his house and take pictures of him with his gay boyfriend, and they're going to use that to blackmail him because it's the 1920s. And then the other one, they know that this guy has a penchant for physically assaulting women. They set him up with Cassandra, who's posing as a prostitute. She then Malkavian inflames him so that he freaks out and attacks her. And then he strangles Cassandra. And she's a vampire, so this does nothing to her, but she pretends to be dead. She's like, you got me. And flops over dead as he's throttling her while in the seedy motel room, while on the fire escape outside, Nathan is standing out there with the camera And then there's the hunt for Murrieta. Now, Murrieta is the former sheriff, and Murrieta is not well liked by a lot of people, especially by the Nosferatu, because he killed one of the Nosferatu, Captain Wiggles. And this is one of my favorite things that happened during the 1920 segment of the game. Cassandra had been talking to Bertram. She was talking to Bertram about one of these two Hollywood guys, these two movie executives she was going to blackmail. And she asked about his house. And Bertram mentioned where his house was. And just purely off the top of my head as flavor, I just threw in Bertram saying oh yeah, we used to go down there, Captain Wiggles and I, and swim in the pool. I already knew at this point who Captain Wiggles was. He was written into the backstory of several of these Nosferatu, and he was dead. He'd been dead since before the players had arrived, before the game had started. But Cassandra heard this, and then a couple of weeks later, when Lacroix is talking with them about Murrieta, he's like, they're mad about Murrieta because he killed Captain Wiggles. Cassandra goes, Captain Wiggles, he's alive. He's not dead. She thought that I had implied that Captain Wiggles was still alive and that he and Bertram went regularly to go swim in this pool. And she starts telling them this story. She's telling Lacroix and telling the Nosferatu. Like, no, Captain Wiggles is alive. And the Nosferatu were like, what are you fucking talking about? He's been dead for months. But Cassandra's a Malkavian. And sometimes the random things that they say come true. And so when they went up to attack Marietta, I decided maybe Captain Wiggles is alive. So the battle with Marietta went okay. It didn't go as well as it might have gone if they had gotten, they were supposed to get this guy to help them fight Marietta with like this song that entranced him, but they didn't do it. They went up there without it. And they still managed to kill Marietta, but because they weren't able to entrance him, he was a lot more dangerous, and so he killed Cactus Jack. But they gained Captain Wiggles. They find Captain Wiggles. Nathan finds him, and he finds him. He's been trapped in this box. Like Marietta was holding him prisoner. He was like in torpor. The Nosferatu are so pleased that I decided, Stone Tree isn't going to be Prince anyway. I'll just say that Stone Tree throws his support in behind the players at this point. It's around this time that Matilda flees the city. I talked about that in her video. Simultaneously to this, there's the whole wrap down with the Torrio brothers and what happens with them. The players kill Nucky. Nathan, Anna, and Archie go to his house and they kill him. Then they go to the chief of police's house, which is Nucky's brother, and they kill him, and I think also accidentally kill his wife. The cops go nuts, of course. Enzo has the bright idea of framing this on Chalky. But then this causes a large portion of the black population of the city to start striking and protesting. So now this is causing massive financial problems. At the same time, Tommy was supposed to go kill Arnold Rothstein. I rolled for Tommy. He crit failed. He fails. He gets arrested. He gets taken to jail. I had expected that the players might go to try and rescue him, but they didn't do that. Either they didn't think to do it or they just didn't care. And he ends up dying in prison while he's being interrogated. Little Eddie finds out about this and is pissed. And he decides to try and get back at them by hiring a bomb guy to put a car bomb in the vehicle of the new chief of police and blow him up. And when Enzo gets wind of this, Enzo goes and stops this. He then reports this back to Johnny Torrio. Now, when he calls Johnny Torrio, Lacroix is right there, of course. Don't you see, this is just another example of how your brother really can't be trusted. Wouldn't it be so much easier to do all of this if you didn't have to carry his mistakes? And Lacroix helps to kind of push Johnny over the edge there to get rid of Little Eddie. And that actually led to a really good scene that I thought was really well done, where Enzo and Archibald, the two mafia guys, the two maid guys, they go and they find Eddie. And they have this whole scene with him. They have this whole conversation about, like, the cops are after him and they know that you're the one who put that car bomb. Everything is going to be ruined for your brother, for us, for everybody. The thing to do here, the honorable thing, is to turn yourself in, to take the blame for all this, to take all the heat, and if you do that, that your family will be taken care of. It was a scene very much like the scene from Godfather 2, where Tom Hagen goes to talk to Frank Pantangelo.
Unless they went home and they killed themselves, then nothing happened. And their families were taken care of, Tom.
That was a good break. Nice deal.
Yeah.
And Enzo convinces him. He convinces Little Eddie that he should turn himself in, and Little Eddie does. They then use that to get Chalky off the hook, which calms down some of the political unrest. Eddie is charged with all these crimes, which calms down a little bit more of the political unrest. And through that, they then get back together with Jillian, who has control of a lot of Little Eddie's finances. And they're able to bring her in as an ally as they kind of take on those responsibilities, allow her to keep her bar and stuff. That brings her in, her son in. But at this point, pretty much everybody who there is that they can gather as an ally, either they've gotten them or they're dead. There are a few who they haven't run into just because of choices that they didn't make or avenues they didn't explore. But for the most part, everything is wrapped up and neat, and it's become very clear that they're going with Lacroix. They have their final little thing they have to do. Just the one thing left, which is they have to get rid of Cowboy Bob. They set a trap for Cowboy Bob at this theater. So Cowboy Bob shows up. He shows up there, and he and what brouhaha he doesn't have very many guys left, roll into this theater. And Golgotha appears on stage. She burns her way through the celluloid, and she gives him the big Undertaker.
If he knows what's good for him.
And Cowboy Bob and all the other Bruja, they are burned up in this theater as it collapses around them. And across the street, at this little coffee shop, LaCroix and Johnny Torrio and Enzo, they just sit there watching the place burn down. LaCroix tells them, I want you to meet me at my new hotel, and we're going to have a little get-together where we can talk about the future of the city. At this get-together, everyone is there. Most of the players are there. Almost all the vampires in the city are there. Even like Big Little Eddie, who never really shows up for anything, is there. They all kind of gather around, and LaCroix brings out this vampire who approaches them, who looks like this like teenage girl, and he presents her to the players and to most of the vampires in the city as his daughter, and also his sire, and the new Prince of Los Angeles, Divya. Then at that point, LaCroix slices the throat of Torrio and lets him drop to the ground, and then slices the throat of Enzo and drops him dead to the ground as well. And when Enzo wakes up, he's alone in this room with just LaCroix. Enzo is naked. He's covered in blood. There's like a dead priest there who he has eaten up. And his character is very Catholic. And so LaCroix, being the kind of guy who likes to fuck with people, throws a priest at him. So the first thing that Enzo can do as a vampire is kill the thing that he puts the most value on. And as Enzo sits there, this like naked, saggy old man on the floor of this like sauna, like sticky with blood with this dead priest in front of him, LaCroix says, I'm going to tell you, Enzo, a fable. Like all fables, this story asks a question, and like all fables, it gives an answer to that question as well. And all of the characters are cute, lovable little animals, of course. This is a story about a wolf, and a fox, and a hyena, and a spider, and a lion. And the name of the story is the Chimera. Now, once upon a time, there was a creature called a Chimera who lived in a wonderful city far away from here. One day, the Chimera awoke to find that its entire city had been destroyed. How it was destroyed isn't important. Let's say fire fell from the sky and leveled it completely. And so the Chimera knew that it needed to find a new home. So the Chimera traveled across the sea to a new world, where it found a lovely house, a pair of lovely houses, in fact. Fantastic location, right on the beach. The only problem is that both of these houses were occupied already by other creatures. One of them housed a wolf, and like all wolves, this wolf had a pack about it, protecting it. The other house housed a fox, and this fox was a very clever creature who had gathered all of these other animals about it. Rats, badgers, weasels. And the Chimera knew that while it might be strong enough to burst into one of these houses and tear apart the other creatures, it would be difficult to do so. The Chimera would have to find another way. It went wandering, and it met a hyena. And the Chimera told the hyena all about the wonderful house that it had found. Fabulous location, right on the beach. The only fault being that it was run by a fox and a bunch of lowly creatures. And with this information, the hyena did what hyenas do. It went looking for trouble. Then the Chimera found another creature, a spider, from the old country as well. Now, one can't tell a spider anything, but it is possible to insinuate to spiders through their prey. It's possible that the spider might learn from the fly about a beautiful house right up on the beach where only a few wolves reside. Now, the wolf was very disturbed by the goings-on of the hyenas and the fox, and the wolf was very disturbed by the suspicious activities of the Chimera, so disturbed by these things that it did not even notice until it was much too late. But the Chimera wasn't the only creature that had come from across the sea. There was also a spider, and the spider did what spiders do. It spun its web until the wolf was caught in it and drained of all of its life. So the Chimera left the wolf's house and it went to the house next door, where chaos reigned. The Chimera told all of the creatures, "I think it would be possible that we could rid ourselves of these hyenas." And the creatures, afraid of the hyenas and even more afraid of the spider that they now had heard was lurking next door, they agreed. And so the Chimera wrote a letter back home to another creature that it knew from long ago, a lion. It told this lion, "Oh, friend lion, there are such wonderful homes here in the New World, beautiful, and right on the beach. They are perfect except for the fact that one of them is occupied now by a spider, and the other overrun with hyenas." And the lion wrote back saying, "Don't you worry, because if there's one thing that lions are good at, it's killing hyenas." So the question that the story poses is, what is a chimera? Chimera is a creature which combines the support structure of a wolf, the cunning of a fox, the malice of a hyena, the courage of a lion, and the patience of a spider. It is the perfect predator, and it is the perfect Ventru. You are now Enzo Bompensero of the clan Ventru. Your dignitas is that you are the child of Lucien Lacroix, once sheriff of Paris and once consul of Rome, who was child of Divia, who was child of Alexander, who was child of Ventru, who was child of Enoch, who was the first child of Cain. From now on, you will live and you will die as a member of our clan. You will rise to the greatest heights and achieve things beyond anything you ever could have imagined in mortal life. Or you will fail, you will eat shit, and you will die. Welcome to the world of darkness.